afternoon, depending on where you are. It's 12 Central for me, so hopefully you are enjoying your time as well. Let's see. Let me get Michelle up here. There we go. Michelle, how are you, ma'am?
Hello, I'm well. How are you guys doing out there?
Okay, so per usual, you guys have been to a webinar. You know how this goes. As you're coming in, say hey in the chat, throw where you're coming in from. We'd love to hear it from you. Tell us what your plans are. If you have Valentine's plans, tell me what those are. If you have anti-Valentine's plans, tell me what those are. I saw where I think like the Austin Zoo or something like that is doing a thing where like you could submit a form to where like if you want to like put in like your ex or like somebody you just really hate, they'll name a cockroach after it and feed it to like, I don't know, the snakes or something like that. So you got that going on.
Amazing.
But anyway, yeah, no, thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it. It has been a minute since we have done a webinar like this in this format. For some of our longtime veterans, you may remember that Balto did a thing called the Conversation Excellence Lab. This is kind of a weird continuation of that tradition doing here today. Let me bring up our presentation and we will get that rolling. I think we're going to drop off for just a second. Don't replace this. Okay, we're back. And we're back. Okay, great. There we go. Okay, so here's our topic today. We are 4 takeaways on the AI and contact centers from 500 different customers. This is going to be a good one. We got some really exciting stuff here. Again, if you've been with us before, you probably know who we are. I'm Justin Smith. I'm a senior marketing manager here at Balto. I've been with us for a good long while. I've done so many different things. Michelle, who are you? What do you want to tell the people?
Hello, Michelle Barbeau, Senior Customer Enablement Manager here at Balto. So that means I get to geek out about contact centers and the product. I'm a former agent, so a big fan of this industry in general.
Yeah. Couple small things before we really get diving in. You will notice on your, I think it's on the right, you have an engagement tab. There's like chat, polls, Q&A, that kind of thing. Chat, throw your messages in there. If you have a specific question that you want us to tackle at the end for like a Q&A, put that in the Q&A tab. It's really cool because then we can see it. We can put the question up on screen. You can vote for what do you want to see. Like if you also want to see a question answered, you can upvote that. There is a poll in the tab that says, do you use AI powered tools in your personal life? I would love it if, as we're going kind of through these introductory slides, go through there, give an answer. It'll come up in a little bit later. So throw your votes in there. Do you use AI powered tools in your personal life? I am going to say, yes, I'm familiar, but I don't use them on a regular basis.
I use them pretty often.
Do you? Okay. I have used them I used it recently because like I needed to do some like math for like financial stuff, and I'm not a math guy. I'm a words guy. That's why I'm here right now. And so I needed some complex stuff, and I'm like, I'm not going to worry about this. Let's just have ChatGPT do some math.
Fair. Same thing. Brainstorming and like structuring data and things like that. Amazing use.
Cool. Okay, so let's dive in completely here. We have our report, 2025 Consumer Expectations Report. And the main point of this is we are now into 2025. AI is ubiquitous. I feel like at this point, it's not even fair to say that we're at like the peak of a hype cycle. This has been such a burning thing since what, late 2022, 23, 24. And within that, as we at Balto, especially, and a number of other companies and teams have really been like pitching this to contact centers and teams, we really wanted to know, like, now that we're into this, like, what are consumer expectations? How have those shifted over time? What do those look like? And as people are using AI more in their personal lives, have their feelings changed about it at all, especially when interacting with companies and customer service teams? So these are the guiding questions that we had for this survey. How is AI reshaping customer expectations? Where is the line between automation and human interaction? Do consumers trust AI? Where can AI develop real value? That kind of thing. So this is what we went into. We wanted to answer broadly these questions. And here are the 4 main takeaways that we had. AI use is on the rise in our personal lives. I feel like that's kind of expected. We all know that. I want to look at the poll here real quick. Okay, we got a few people saying not using them, few people saying once per day, once per week. So I feel like that's an improvement in general anyway.
Okay.
Within that, though, when we're talking to customer service teams, most of us still prefer to talk to humans. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not us saying that humans are the way to go. Don't use AI. That is not at all what this is. Get rid of that thought. But this is a good point that I'm going to return to. Sentiment towards AI is getting better, and overall, AI can help with simple tasks. We're going to talk about all of this. Michelle, I know this was a point that I wanted to turn over to you. You are the frontline person when we get new Balto customers and they are onboarding the product. You are like one of the very first faces that they will see. I
Mhm.
feel like you're probably like our first line of defense whenever we get people like coming into this being like, hey, how is this going to affect my customers? What has that experience been like over the past, let's say, year or so? We've gotten past this hype, but now people are really trying to figure that out.
Sure. I mean, it used to be where people didn't even know what AI could do or even what was this thing. They couldn't even comprehend or like even imagine it. And so it would usually wildly swing to like, we're completely changing everything to all AI all the time, no humans, or I don't trust any of this, right? And a lot of that has really fallen away. And we've kind of come to, there's some real nuance and understanding happening there. I think that idea of the sentiment towards AI is really starting to show up where it's becoming more a part of the on like it shows up in the conversation already, the
Mhm.
understanding behind it. And yet at the same time, I'm hearing a lot more folks talking about how can we use this to power their team rather than replace their team. And that's exactly the type of thing I want to hear. Because how can we automate away some of those simple tasks, make those easier, quicker to move through. All of those types of things are exactly the things that we're going to talk about later as well. And I'm seeing that with our customers too. So it's nice to see that those two things do mix. And
Yeah.
then me as a human, right? I also still prefer to talk to another human when it comes time to do a sale or understand a product. I want to get some basic consistent information. Probably I could get some of that through AI. But then that conversation piece, even with our customers, it seems to be that's the same thing. They need to discuss it with us as a human so that then they can put it into a product and make it more of an automated task. It's interesting to watch that.
Yeah, I'm giving away a little bit of the ending here, but the big thing that we talk about at Balto is how do you power agents with AI rather than trying to replace them?
Yes.
And that's going to become a fundamental key in a lot of this. So let's kind of get to that. Real quick, here's just some data at a glance. You know, some people, they love looking at these stats. Just under 40% of our respondents saying that they are using AI tools at least weekly.
Mhm.
I don't remember the exact number offhand. I know we did a similar survey like this in the past, and I know for a fact that this is up from that amount of time. So again, kind of like I said at the top here, this kind of thing is becoming so much more ubiquitous, both in our personal and in our professional lives.
Mhm.
Almost 50% of respondents still strongly prefer talking to human agents. This is interesting. That is a lot. At the same time, again, that is down from what we once saw. So we're going to talk about how that plays into this. And then a similar, almost 50% want to know if they are talking to AI or a human. This is important for like a privacy concern. Michelle, I know you have strong feelings about this.
Strong, deep, burning feelings about this. In the same way that we need to disclose if we're being recorded, we need to know if we're talking to an AI versus a human. If I start a relationship with any type of organization and they've lied or withheld that information from me, come on. Is that the way you want to start that relationship? I won't be able to trust anything that comes after that. So I'm just saying, proceed with caution with that. That just let us know the transparency is going to go way farther in this landscape, especially as people's understanding of what AI can and can't do continues to rise. And whether or not it's even in the realm of what you're doing, we still need to be honoring that to the public. So please just disclose, please, please.
For sure. Yeah, like I said, we'll touch on that here soon enough as well. As we go through this presentation, by all means, because we're discussing like the findings that we had in a report, and a lot of this is our interpretation of it. If you have your own take, agree, disagree, somewhere in the middle, throw that in the chat. Let us know. We want to hear those opinions as well. But let's look at this in a little bit more of a detail. So we asked the question, do you use AI powered tools in your personal life? Again, we've been kind of hitting this now for the first 10 minutes or so. A lot of people saying yes, once per week. A lot of people saying once per month. People saying often. This is a significant improvement over what we saw certainly in 2023. And if I recall correctly, 2024, whenever we also asked a similar question. This is increasing. And the reason why this is important for us as professionals within the contact center industry is I think that this is one of those things where the more that you are familiar with this in your personal life, the more that you can see this in a professional setting. Mm-hmm. I am under the impression, this is my own armchair psychologist take, that like if you are already using something in your personal life, it makes more sense to you to use that in a professional. The opposite is not always the case.
Correct.
If you're using something in that professional setting, that does not mean that that translates to your personal life. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure there is like a behavioral psychologist out there somewhere who is yelling at me right now. But and the reason why I bring this up is these next couple slides, these are actually ones that I have taken from a presentation that Balto CEO Mark Bernstein has given in the past. These predictions that he has given is a mix of his opinion versus what a lot of experts in the AI field have talked about. And it has become something of a North Star for Balto as we're developing our product and as we're developing how we fit into the AI space. We have claimed that the contact center will have fully natural language virtual agents or more that are capable than humans in less than 3 years. That's fast. That's very fast. Whether or not that is true is besides the point. If we are looking at the pace that AI is developing, this is not unlikely, minimum. Correct. What this sets up then, this is a technological battle. This is the way that we have framed this in our heads. On one side of this, you have the argument that says, well, you need to automate everything. You need to replace human workers with AI as it becomes more capable. The other side of this says, well, no, you can make your human agents a magnitude more effective than what they are today. And these are kind of these two sides of this argument. And this is still existing. This is still real. This Gartner survey, this rolled out in 2024, showing that people still want to talk to, they still want to talk to humans. Some companies still saying that they're not using AI for customer service. This is less than a year ago. I'm sure this has shifted since then, but still, here's this LinkedIn post from Mark just the other day talking about legitimate use cases for AI versus non-legitimate use cases. And you'll notice that he talks about areas that are very easily automated, taking notes on calls, scanning through tons of call data and trying to get a quick answer. But the opposite of that is like things that aren't really valid in this currently is completely replicating that customer service, completely replacing human coaching. Whether or not, and this is very much my own opinion, but whether or not AI agents are available now for that kind of thing, I think that that would be a disappointing experience for a lot of us. Yes. I bring a lot of this up to kind of set up the stage for where we are heading next. Back to our survey, when we asked the question, do you prefer to interact with AI or humans when talking to customer service? A big number of people still say they strongly prefer talking to humans. Another group of people said, nah, doesn't matter to me, whatever. Some people saying, well, I would still rather talk to humans, but it's not that big of a deal. And it starts going down from there.
I mean, I personally am in here. I kind of like putting on different hats, right? We're insiders in the industry. And yet at the same time, we do move through our regular lives as consumers. And so I was recently traveling and I was sitting in my rental car, getting ready to type in the GPS to my hotel and realized that there was an issue with my hotel reservation. I didn't send an email or talk to a chat bot. I picked up the phone and called a person and got it handled right away. I'm part of that 242, that when I have that immediate need, this has to be figured out. Where am I going to sleep tonight? I'm going to call a human. But we'll keep going and see that there's other times and other instances where maybe there's other options available. So automating everything might not be the way forward. Powering people so that way you can get those different options really seems like a great way forward from where I'm standing as a consumer and as a person inside the industry.
Absolutely. And I think an important note in this, and this is one of the things here, I'll go ahead and go to the next slide just because this ties into this, but to continue this point, it's not that consumers, I don't think they're necessarily bothered right out of the gate if somebody on the other end is using AI to help them.
Correct.
It is this difference between, am I talking to a person or am I talking to an AI, where this gets more sticky?
Yes.
There's kind of an example of this. We asked the question, okay, when you know you have to engage with a company for a product or a service, like how are you going to seek out support? By and far, people are still looking towards that phone call. I think it is fair to say that there is a degree to which, to where that might just be like ingrained habit within us because this is what's been available to us. You know, like, oh, I got a problem, let me call them real quick and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
But that is still a valid note within this. Now, where we're going with this is a little bit more exciting. The overall sentiment towards AI, that window is shifting. It continues to shift. Again, I keep calling back to these other surveys, but I know just because looking at the data for so much back then, this was not the case. We were much more towards that more negative side of it, a little more apprehensive. The fact that this window is shifting more and more towards the center and more towards the right side of this graph, where we're talking about having a more positive association with AI, speaks to a growing understanding of how these things can benefit an industry and us as consumers.
Agreed.
Let's see here. And then this little fun graph here that I also want to look at when we're talking about, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is it to know whether you're interacting with AI or human when seeking customer service? Some people saying like, nah, not important at all. But on the other end of that, a lot of people saying that it is very important.
It is.
I think the context in this is, it is not to say that people don't want to interact with AI at all. It is to saying that, like, hey, I want to know when and how that AI is happening.
Correct.
Because people know, hey, I'm using AI. I know this has value. Like I'm more approachable to this than I was before. We just saw that of the overall sentiment. But knowing how and when it is being used is still critical to people. I mean, Michelle, that you started with that right up at the very top.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. I really think that it is the aspect of being able to use the right tool in the right situation. I immediately picked up the phone when I needed that response right away. But then, not an hour ago, I needed software support with something else. I happily went to the chatbot. Happily. I didn't need to call someone and have this back and forth and go. I could easily use just an automated virtual agent for that. That was just fine. So just being able, also the conversation started out by saying, hi, I'm your virtual agent. They disclosed it. And then I knew what types of interactions we could do together.
Absolutely. One of the things that it's in the report itself, we didn't have these graph in the slide here or another table, but we asked like, okay, what concerns do you have with AI being in customer experience settings? 3 of the top categories in that were people saying not being able to get in touch with the human,
Yes.
difficulty in handling complex issues, and a lack of empathy.
Yes.
All 3 of those, again, I want to make the point that that is not people saying, I don't want you using AI at all. It is knowing, is there still a viable path to where I can talk to somebody if I need to?
Mm-hmm.
Is the AI going to be able to handle these complex issues that I have, like somebody trying to figure out whether or not they still have a hotel room or not?
Uh-huh.
And a lack of empathy. I mean, especially Lord. I mean, some of these industries, I know, Balto, we deal with companies where like these can be like these can be emotionally charged conversations, whether about medical billing or just health insurance in general. I mean, you want to know that there's somebody out there who can at least try and sympathize with you when you're talking about these things.
Yes.
That's not to say that you don't want them to be able to use some kind of an AI tool to quickly find information. In fact, I think that probably helps in a big way.
Yes. Speed up the parts of the conversation where we need that information fast. We need to be able to move through and be able to trust the information that comes there from the most up to date and standardized type of understanding. Yes, please use AI for that. And then when we're talking about end of life expenses, can we please put some empathy in there and some sensitivity and like a human touch, because this is tricky. And so we're touching on that human psychology along with the need to also get some stuff done. So blend those two things together.
Absolutely. And I hope as we're going through this that our members in the audience here, again, I would assume if you're here on a Balto webinar, you are familiar with AI by and large to one degree or another. I would assume by this point you're already using an AI tool within your teams. You are at least considering it. You are familiar with it at the bare bones. So
Mhm.
again, would love to know what this has looked like within your teams. Throw that in the chat if you have it.
Mhm.
Especially as we get to this final point here, when thinking about the graphs, when thinking about our findings, we asked the question, how do you feel that AI can enhance customer service experience in the future? And look at these responses here. It's faster response times, accurate answers, ability to solve problems without talking to a human,
Mhm.
availability at any time. A small group of people saying AI could not, or don't think that it could enhance their customer service experience. All right, we got some naysayers there. But most of these are things that, again, this isn't a matter of like, oh, well, an AI voice bot is going to be able to handle this any better. It is knowing that, well, this could make the experience easier. This can make it better for both me as the consumer and probably for the worker. Being able to get a response quickly, being able to get accurate answers without having to wait for like that. Okay, well, let me look that up. And then they're going through the whole document and everything. Michelle, I know that you have strong memories of those days.
So many memories, including those, the beginning of every single call where you're like, who am I? Let me look up your account information. Let me cross reference this. Let me verify that. What do you need a human for that? Do we need to go through that process together, or could we move that a little faster? I think we really could, and everyone would benefit from it. I don't know what your experiences is, but it's not my favorite part of any conversation I'm having with any account.
Absolutely. Yeah, this has been very exciting to see on our side of it. As Balto has grown as a company and as we have grown as a product, and our vision and philosophy has moved and shifted along with that, this is one of the things that we have continued to emphasize. One of the things is being able to look at our product and where we started with this of originally just trying to convince people like, hey, you need to be able to get answers in real time. And trying to then tell people that Balto is the good solution for that. We're kind
Mhm.
of past that point now. I mean, again, we keep hammering this point, but I hope it's relevant in that people know that AI can have benefits one way or the other. Some consumers don't think so. I think that will slowly shift over time, regardless. But we don't really have to convince people that AI is a valuable tool to have for real time. Now it's showing like, well, where can you make improvements in a way that matters?
Mhm.
Um, Michelle, I don't remember if we talked about this on our prep call, but one of the things was the marketing team here. We had a conversation with Mark earlier this week, and we were talking about like, well, hey, how do we talk about our products that are rolling out this year? How does this impact the market? And the
Yes.
big sticking point that we were talking about is the back office and all these back office tasks.
Yes.
You are able to automate QA scoring, when you're able to automate how quickly somebody can look up answers, how
Yes.
quickly you can look up scores for when you're grading calls, you're developing these coaching programs.
Mhm.
This is a big piece of that.
That's huge. The amount of time in my workday that used to be dedicated to back office type stuff. Meanwhile, I need to support my team who's having live conversations with my customers. But I mean, more and more of my day would get sucked into that back office. And yet at the same time, that didn't need to be there right at that breakneck speed. So it's the perfect place to be able to experiment and try out some different things and pull in some of these other efficiencies. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other big things too is talking about how quickly then you can pull insights out of these conversations. I know that that has become such a big thing for our customers and people that we've talked to in the industry in general.
Mhm.
Um, Being able to know that not only are these conversations moving quickly, but then you can then go in and be like, as soon as that call is over, know that, oh, well, that's now in my data set. If I'm trying to figure out, hey, what are my customers complaining about? What are they liking? What are they not? Being
Yes.
able to grab that kind of stuff out of there.
I mean, it used to be walking behind my team and overhearing the conversation and go, "Uh-oh, is our website down? I hear a lot of people talking about our website," right? And like that was the only way you'd get it. Or you'd have a mountain of data that would but you take so long to wade through to pull out that insight. If we can go from that mountain to action, that opened up so much more of my day. So anytime we can add that to our contact center, your team will benefit.
For sure. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit here, Ben, like some takeaways out of this. And before we really dig into this, I want to follow that narrative arc that we have just set up here. We know more people are using it in their personal lives. We know people are using AI in their personal lives to one degree or another. And we know that the overall sentiment towards AI tools is shifting more towards the center and more towards the positive as time is going on. We also know that when people want to talk to a customer service team to get help, they're still on the side of wanting to talk to a human, but we recognize that there is value in having AI tools that can help improve that overall experience. We know that there is a benefit in being able to get answers faster, being able to have accurate answers, being able to know that whatever you were looking at, that is helping the situation rather than trying to wade through some virtual agent right now who may or may not have that functionality. Again, we have a prediction that over the next few years that can change, and we'll have to adapt and grow to that in one way or another. But with that in mind, these are some recommendations that we base off of the findings of this report. Number one, looking at hybrid models. Another way of looking at this is powering your agents with AI. That's kind of in one corner, one in the other there. This is saying don't immediately flip to this idea that you need to automate everything right now and get rid of your agents and try and pull in these things. You will not have a good time. I'm pretty sure of that. Um,
People buy from people. Like that's just the
yes,
way that works. It's buying decisions is not a logical data based activity. It's an emotional one. And we know this.
right. I think, and again, going into my armchair psychologist element of this, I do also think that there is an element when we talk about powering agents with AI. I generally think that people like it whenever you have a tool and you give it to them and you say, hey, this is really going to help you do better at X, Y, or Z. I know in the contact center space that can go one way or the other. One of the concerns that we did have in the survey was asking where people said that they were worried about AI taking the jobs of agents.
Mhm.
And I think it's a conversation we've been having for a couple years now. That has not yet happened. Again, maybe in the next coming years if AI develops in that same way, but that's not really what we're concerned about. What we're concerned about is still being able to deliver a customer experience that is valuable. And so when we're delivering these tools, I think overall more people are receptive to that. Um, Michelle, I mean, this is a little bit different. We're going back some years now. I don't think AI was quite the thing that it was in your day in a contact
Dark
center that it is
ages.
now.
Yes, the dark
But I
ages.
mean, can you still speak to the idea of like when you bring in this new tool where people generally look at that maybe with some level of caution, but overall they're like, okay, well, let's see how this works out.
Exactly that. We were cautiously optimistic every time a new tool came in because we know what we're trying to do, what end outcomes we're trying to come to. And if this will help us get there better, and it was always about taking care of the customer, it was always about improving their experience and delivering on the promises that we've made for them. If we can do that better, we're willing to try it. Right. So if that is the way forward, if I genuinely thought that automating agents completely away would deliver on that value promise, I would have to consider it. And thus far, it's more the way that we're framing it instead, that it's like, no, I really think that by including it, lower the cost of entry for these other tasks, so that way there's more room for that human element. It seems like that is the way that the software and things solutions that we had back in our dark ages, pre fancy AI tech, would have come in. That would have brought, that was our success measure. Is it going to help us deliver on that value promise or not?
Yeah, and to spend a couple more minutes on this as well here, when you are talking to new Balto customers coming in, this is one of the things that I imagine you have to set that tone for, to say like, hey, because I do imagine, again, I've already said this, but I imagine there are some agents who immediately look at this and are like, I don't know
Yes.
about this dude. I don't know if I like this or not. How are you setting that tone with new, I say Balto customers because that's who they are, but like with teams in general, with these contact center teams, of knowing like, hey, this is how we're going to benefit that. How do you set that tone with them?
Absolutely. It is actually when I'm doing like a train the trainer session where I'm like, here's how we onboard teams, and here's how we would suggest you take our philosophy to onboard your own teams. That is the first thing. I was like, they won't hear a tiny bit of benefit about this until you set the stage and address that kind of part of that human mentality, psychological type stuff, right? That we can't get to the logic until we address the emotion. And if there is that fear and concern, and am I automating myself out of a job, who would voluntarily go into that, right? So
Mhm.
we do really focus on the here's how this is going to help your conversations be even easier. Here's how you're going to be able to use this to convert more. Here's how you're going to be able to move past those objections that have previously stumped you, or you've tried different ways to overcome it, but you don't even know, is this way better or is this way better? Well, what if you had your team had the data insights to be able to go, ooh, this way works better than that one. So let's do more of this and less of this. And then feeding that back in, suddenly the agent would be much more receptive to being a part of that, where they're like, okay, this is helping me as an individual, but then also the bigger picture of then I can also deliver really great stuff to the person I'm speaking to. And we come at that first and foremost, that it is helping minimize and streamline the stuff that gets in our way, move that out of the way as much as possible so that there's more room for the conversation between you and another human. That's the way we frame it. And it really just changes the entire conversation. So please don't miss that part when you're also thinking about it for your teams, about taking something AI. How are you going to frame this? What's the philosophy? What's the expectation around it?
Yeah. I really think too I mean, like that ties into our top middle point there about investing in transparency. Now, because we're talking about customer experience, we included this in saying like, okay, as your teams are incorporating AI into it, make sure you have that transparency with your customers. But that's a good point too. I mean, that's just transparency with your agents, with your teams. You want to be able to know that everybody is clear on what these tools are, how they can benefit, what the expectation is one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then as that relates also to customers, I this is Justin Smith's very personal opinion. I don't necessarily think that we are looking at a state where like on every single call you have to get on there and say, "Hi, thanks for calling Balto. This is Justin Smith speaking to you. I am using an AI tool right now to look up answers. How can I help you?" I don't really think that's necessary. But if there is a level to where you know that, especially as we get closer and closer to voice agents having such overlap there is a degree of wanting to make sure you're building trust with your
Yes.
customers and with the industry to say, hey, this is areas where we are augmenting this, or maybe this is an area where you're not going to be speaking to a human right away. But at any point in time, if you do know that you want to do this, we can progress that forward.
Correct. I even see a comment in the chat around things like it being frustrating when AI is used for outbounding,
Mm,
when there are levels of privacy and transparency and issues at stake. We can't legally interact in that way. We must pull it back in order to protect the privacy and the regulatory status of those things. And so it is something to keep in mind. And then I'm always that bleeding heart of like, think about the human involved as well, right? Like,
mhm.
just be open and honest with let us know we're going to do this in this way at this part in the conversation. And here's your other options if you'd like to do it a different way. Most folks are just happy to have that. But if you don't disclose it, they're not going to want to play ball with you again.
Absolutely. Um, let's shift gears a little bit here. When talking about bringing in these tools, measure and adapt. I feel like this should not be a surprise to anyone at this point. You can't incorporate any tool at all, regardless if it's AI or, I don't know, a rock, without being able to talk about how is this being used, how successful is it, and how can you shift with it. I, I feel like that's just so standard at this point. It shouldn't even be obvious. But at the same time, there is a benefit to this. Whenever you have access to these kinds of tools, it does mean that you are able to measure and adapt faster. I brought up earlier the idea of being able to, once you know you have a call that's been logged and it's in your cloud or it's in whatever system it is that you're using, being able to quickly then go and find the answers that you need. It does make that measuring faster. And I think it makes us more adaptable.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I feel like this is pretty cut and dry. Michelle, is there anything there you think we need to expand on?
And yet at the same time, like kind of like inside the contact center, so talking to the folks that are here with us, we say that, and yet it's a fundamental principle. And yet, how much of our time is spent coaching people on the fundamentals? When folks are trying to get so fancy with their delivery, and I'm like, yes, but can you please make sure you hit the core three things that needs to happen on this call? Like, we get sloppy and some of those fundamentals do fall away. So I don't think we will ever stop saying those and keeping it as part of our focal point, because usually as soon as we get busy, things fall and get messy. And so then we tidy it back up. That's what spring cleaning is for. Happy Valentine's to everyone, right? And so you get back to those. So what is it that you are currently measuring and adapting? Does your team know that? Like like for this week, not from last year or 2 years ago, or it's somewhere posted on a poster. Do they know that for real? Right? Like really bringing it into the day to day in addition to inside your institution. I think it could be helpful.
Absolutely. These last 2 points here, I'm going to tie together. Talking about enhancing AI capabilities and powering your agents with AI. I think these really are um, very much, if they're not one and the same, lot of overlap. We have hammered this point this entire session here. If you go to Balto's website, you will see this message continue to be hammered. It is something we believe to our core, which is when you give agents the tools that are available today, not only are you doing the complex things or faster, you're accomplishing them in a way that makes sure customers are getting the help that they need. Everybody feels better about it. And you are powering your workforce in a way that doesn't disenfranchise them, it makes them better. I
Yes.
I don't really know how much more frank we can be about that kind of thing. Um, but again, that is something we believe down to our core. It was very exciting getting the results back from this survey and seeing that reinforcement in that way. But it's hard to walk away from that message and not feel optimistic about the future for what this holds for all of us, both as companies as wanting to give good performance, but also in seeing practical applications for where these tools are making a difference for us.
Totally. Because even in that middle area that isn't always as focused on, we like the end business outcomes and we also like the early and innovation and adaption. Also, when you give your team the resources and supports that they need, they perform better without you having to beg for it, right? They they want to do well if they are well supported. So like, you won't even, if I demand something, I will get just that. But if I empower folks and give them a rich landscape and have some expectations, usually they tend to exceed my expectations beyond what I could dream up by myself. So there's that middle part too, like make your own lives easier by giving them things that will help them do well.
Absolutely. Okay, we're gonna come up here toward a little bit the end. In the chat, I just dropped the link to the report itself. There's two things. You can view that on the website. It's a little bit more of a condensed version. If you want to read the full report, it's about 15 pages. It's not too terribly long, but it goes into a lot more detail than what we've been talking about here. You can see all of our graphs, all the tables. You can get all the demographic information if you're a real science person, you want to take a look at all that and break that down. You can download the PDF for free. It shouldn't be gated. We just need an email. That way we know where to send it. So please do check that out. If you want to get the full details on that, share it with your colleagues, share it with your teams, whatever you'd like to do with it. On that QR code right there in the middle, same thing if you want to check it out on your phone. We're a little bit close here to the end. We do have some time for some questions. If anybody would like to throw that out right now, we breezed through a lot of this. We bounced around a lot. If anybody has any questions about our opinions, about what the survey says or anything, please, by all means, throw that in there now. This is your chance. We'd love to talk about them. And while we're waiting on that, again, just a plug for the report itself. If you would like to hear more from Balto in general about these kinds of topics, some of the content that we're putting out in general, where we're discussing different elements of AI, elements of the contact center industry, that kind of thing, you can subscribe to our newsletter. I will do a little plug for myself in that we are relaunching our outward facing newsletter. We are very much trying to make it valuable to the people who want to see that. Very much trying to make sure that that is valuable in a way where you are taking away results and ideas rather than just a plug for Balto as a product. But still, if you want to get those updates, please subscribe to the newsletter. We do have our QR code there if you are really interested in Balto, and you can book a demo with one of our lovely AEs, and they will show you what you can accomplish with that. So that is my marketing plug. Have to do it.
I really appreciate these kinds of insights, that it's not just we do happen to like Balto, right? It's
very much so.
It is the product that I wish I could go back in time and hand to my managers, because it was every piece of insight and the visibility into calls and how to make what seemed impossible turn into a streamlined, inevitable thing. So absolutely love it. However, anytime you're inside this industry in general and just having these important conversations, by you engaging with it, by you interacting with the AI, by you interacting with these conversations, you're part of the building what it turns into. So I also just appreciate folks coming to these types of conversations and adding your voice into it, because we're building something new together. What do you want to do with it? You get to vote.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move towards wrapping this up. Thank you, everybody, for being here today with us. Thank you for joining us for another webinar where we're talking about these kinds of reports. It's always fun. We do like to get to share this kind of thing. Balto really, really does enjoy getting to talk about the things that we are finding in the industry and sharing that outwards. It is very important to us, and hopefully you're getting value out of it in the same way that we are. One more time, quick plug for our QR codes here. If you want to book a demo, scan that code right there. If you want to download the report, it's right there, or it's in the chat. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter or just get some emails from us in general, that is also right there. One last plug from me is next week on Thursday, 11 a.m. Central, we are doing another webinar. This was a little bit different of a subject matter than what we're talking about here. We are going to be talking about how you can get sales insights from customer conversations. So we're going to the other side. We're going from our inbound to our outbound. We are going to be partnering with a Balto customer on that, and a partner in our space, Zero AI. I'm going to throw that in the chat as well if you want to go and register for that. I am personally very excited about this. We are going to have some great topics. We got some great speakers lined up. Again, kind of looking at broadly the same thing that we're looking at here today, and how you can scale insights and stuff with AI, but on that sales side of it. So if that's something that you were interested in, if you were in the home improvement industry, if you know somebody in the home improvement industry, we'd love to see you there. Check that out. I can't wait. Other than that, I think that is what we have. Michelle, thank you as always for being here. Everybody else, I hope you have a lovely rest of your week. Have a great weekend. Stay warm. It's cold in St. Louis, but we're headed towards the spring. So thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon.
Take care.